Welcome back to the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast. I have my wife Abby on here. Hello.
Hey.
This is like the thing. Thursdays with Abby, but today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, we had success last weekend.
Yep.
Pressure is off.
Yeah.
You don't sound convinced. Is there still more pressure that I'm not aware of? I was feeling pretty relaxed.
You want to fill your last tag, and you only have less than 2 weeks to do it.
Yeah. It's nice to have the monkey off the back after last year's experience and not getting one during rut, and then did a lot of hiking around, a lot of frustration, not being able to get to the spots I wanted to, and then finally going to a spot that I e-scouted. I'd thought about it actually last year, maybe even the year before. It just seemed like a lot harder place to get to and something that people didn't want to mess with. So there was a boat ride, a row, and a hike. Rather than just like anchoring and rowing to shore, there was a more extended row involved. But it was a pretty nice network of muskegs.
Yeah, it looked awesome. It looked like there was just a lot of good habitat, and then when we broke out in those muskegs, there were rubs everywhere.
Yeah. The first muskeg was more like a swamp, and I didn't really like it. It was kind of that high grass stuff. There were definitely tracks around, but it's so hard to tell how old that is. Because once the grass starts to die and something walks on it, it's going to be packed down. It's not going to spring back. And so we could have been looking at tracks from, a week or so old that were a week or so old, and you can't tell. There's no snow. There's nothing to indicate otherwise.
Yeah, it's crazy how, in the mud that footprints are going to stick around longer, and so because you know that, you kind of adjust or you look at how sharp they are, but somehow there, you can see a lot of sign, but just because it's all so wet, it's like, it could have rained yesterday and washed this footprint out, or it could have rained a month ago and washed this footprint out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm mostly convinced that most of the sign that we've seen up to this point is bear trails.
Well, that was the thing. Walking up in that, I cut the row a little bit short because it just looked like some awesome timber. But once we got in there, it made total sense that it was just going to be bear trails, and it was. The bottom, I don't know, the first half or quarter mile at least, as we were starting to head up, was just bear trails and bear poo, and a lot of it was pretty old, but it was just clear that everything that was running around that area was bears, and it made sense because you had salmon in the area. And when we stopped rowing, it was you could smell them. So once we got up higher out of that stuff, then you could tell the trails were more deer, and then those muskegs that when they step in the mud, you can kind of see, but then when they're just stepping on the grass, or they're stepping on that peat, you just can't tell. But so we sat at that one spot for 15, 20 minutes, but didn't see any rubs in that bottom one, which wasn't ideal. And then we kind of flanked the next one, and it was kind of loud, but it was open enough to where you could go. We went pretty slow, and it was about 10 steps and then pause, sometimes a little bit less, but we were able to get through that pretty quiet. It wasn't raining too much. There was a little bit of something to cover some noise, but just wanted to make sure we didn't bump anything.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I would have been... We have not seen anything up until that point, so that's the point where I was kind of like, let's blow through this, see if we can bump something, so we at least, know there's deer.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, it's so hard to tell because you're looking forward, but you may have walked past something. And so then if it ends up getting scared, or you bump something, sideways, and you never see it, or it could bump when we're walking and we don't even hear it because you don't get. It's not like an elk, but even elk when they blow out, you can hear them for 4 or 5 steps, one per hoof, and then somehow they just vanish. You don't hear them crashing for hundreds of yards. So those blacktail, it bound around, you hear them once, and that's about it. So yeah, it was kind of disheartening to not hear anything. In that first muskeg, I thought it was going to be about the same, but as we were working through that other one, it was maybe 100 yards or so, and there was a nice little dip before. We stood there for a little bit, You blew the call twice, and then we slowly approached, got up to the muskeg, saw a rub immediately, and then kind of worked along the edge of the muskeg and saw another one, and then sat down. I think we'd sat down for maybe 5 minutes. You were a little bit more exposed than I was, and so I said, let's switch spots. And so as we were switching spots, I don't even think I sat down, and I saw the deer. What did I say? Did I say deer? What did I say? There he is. What did I say?
You were like, "There's a buck," and I thought you were like joking. You said it no like it was nothing, and I was like, "There's a deer?" Because I couldn't see him because I was sitting down, but I'd just been standing up, and then I got worried because I was like, "We just moved all around. How did he not spook? Obviously, he saw us."
Yeah. Because, we sat down, you called twice, good calls, and we were calling for like a smaller vicinity. The drop shot call guys talk a lot about like calling, and Jesse, I think, talks about this too, that you want to call for the muskeg that you're at. That way, if there's nothing there, you're not in the process of bringing something from a long way away, and you could bring in something that's kind of curious. And so like call loud enough to be calling for that specific muskeg, and that way you feel better when you do leave. If there's nothing that within 20, 30, 45 minutes, then you feel better about taking off rather than calling louder. You could be bringing in something from longer, which means that you could probably stay longer. But you'd called twice, we sat maybe 5 minutes, and then as we were switching, I saw something just kind of standing just on the edge, and the antlers I thought I saw something, but with the ears perked up, sometimes a little thin forky you're not really sure what it is. So, because the little forkies are right next to the ears. So put the binos up, saw that it was a buck, and then kind of got in, okay, let's figure this out mode.
Yeah, I think, actually, I can't remember if you said there was a buck, and then immediately, you started getting into your backpack, and I was like, are you going to shoot it? Like, what are you doing? And you were getting the camera out.
Well, it looked like it was coming in, and I ducked down out so he couldn't see either of us. So I told you to call quietly 2 more times, and as it was coming up from behind, got the camera out, just might as well. And I think that was because it was a smaller buck.
Yeah.
I think it was, let's try to, if we're going to practice on something, let's practice on this guy, because you won't feel as bad if it gets away. But yeah, if it would have been a nice buck. It was tough because I wasn't in a spot where I don't shoot standing very often. I don't really like it. I like being able to at least grab onto a tree and then kind of rest my rifle on my thumb. Especially like it's a tree that you can kind of grab all the way around. And then if you can grab all the way around it, you can kind of rest the barrel on the thumb that's grabbed onto the tree, or you can rest it on kind of your wrist, whatever side the thing is on. But I didn't really have anything. I was standing out there kind of exposed, and there was a big tree and then some brush. So I wanted to kind of wait till it was closer. And if it had kind of come up a little bit and gone around a little bit of brush, then I could have sat sitting or shot sitting or kneeling, which would have been ideal. So figuring we had a little bit of time, I thought maybe that was best. And then kind of just whispered back and forth.
Yeah, I mean,
after years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plans shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
I was worried. Well, first I was like, are you going to shoot him? Because you didn't seem like you were about to shoot him. And then we had made so much movement in, getting out the camera, switching spots. Like, you stood up and sat back down, then you stood up again, and I just saw him moving. And looking back at the video that I shot, you can tell he's kind of moving around a bush and he's going to keep coming at us. But I was like, he's leaving.
Yeah.
And so I was just nervous about, it's crazy to me that you can just make a call and this deer, he sees us and he just keeps walking right at us. That is, I don't know if any animal, I don't know. You don't want to say he's dumb, but in my experience hunting down south, a deer sees you, an elk sees you, they're gone.
It's gone. Yeah. Well, I think part of it was that we were far enough away to where when he saw us and then we ducked back down, it wasn't sure, what is that? And that sound is something that I'm curious about. So the curiosity outweighs what it's seeing. And based on where we were at, I don't think there was much traffic there at all.
Yeah, probably true.
So that could be it. So, there are people call in stuff all the time and it just kind of runs in at them. And so I think they're a little bit compromised because of the time of year, but he was just kind of curious and kind of kept coming in. And as long as there was something to kind of keep him there, and then, just kind of knew that and staying calm, kind of like with your mule deer, in that you didn't want to rush. We were both excited, but just, okay, we moved up a little bit. So I'm sure they had to have seen the movement, but we just didn't really look like a threat, I guess, because we were pretty exposed, but there were some bushes. You had a clear shot as long as they were clear of those bushes, which meant that every time that they were walking out of those bushes, all of those deer, however many sets of eyes, a dozen sets of eyes, something had to have seen the movement, but just wasn't. We were broken up enough with the camo.
We were so low to the ground.
We were low to the ground that we didn't look like a threat. So
yeah,
I don't think there was maybe much that was looking threatening about us. So maybe that was probably the key.
Yeah, it is kind of, it's interesting to think about these animals, I guess, that haven't experienced much hunting and they're just still curious. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
so you were filming and you were still kneeling down, and it's with the brand new camera, which is pretty sweet. That thing is awesome because it's half the size, but it's still got a great zoom, awesome Sony A6. And it's still kind of coming in, and then I stand up but it's not clear of some brush yet, and you're still kneeling. And in the video, it's pretty funny because it's not really sure what to focus on, so it chooses a bush, and you can see the deer back behind it, and it starts to get nervous because I'm standing up waiting for it to come clear. And then it starts to kind of take off. And so I adjust my angle. I tell you to blow the call. And then it hesitated just enough. And I was able to kind of step to the side and shoot. And it was kind of quartering away at that point. Now I hit a little far back and just blew up both tenderloins, which was pretty sad.
Yeah, right through the tenderloins.
Yeah, it was crazy to hit both of them. It was a pretty small deer, too. So that's pinpoint precision. But yeah, so it was that second call is huge because it was curiosity. Then he saw us, but he was still curious about what was going on. You called again, and then he started coming again. And only then when he spooked, but he still hesitated when he heard the two calls the second time. There's a little more urgency in those calls. But yeah, I've done that before where I came quietly up on the edge of a muskeg and something was bedded down, and I watched it stand up and it was looking at me. and there was way too obstructed for a shot, and it didn't spook. It just kind of walked off, maybe like a half or quarter trot, and once it kind of turned its head, I just called quietly twice, and then I waited for about 10 minutes because it was out of sight, but thought maybe the call would get it to stick around a little bit, and because I wasn't pursuing it, I don't think it felt like there was danger, so waited about 10 minutes and just kind of snuck down, and I was still like in the transition between timber and muskeg, and then he was just standing right on the edge of the muskeg hanging out, and he ended up only bumping about 15-20 yards from where I first saw him in his bed, and then took the shot and got him. But yeah
it's interesting, those animals that, I mean, that deer probably had never seen a hunter, and so he's used to predators have to be close to him to kill him. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of weird to think about, how do these animals get conditioned to know that like hunters are out to get them? Like, how many times has that deer been shot at, or like seen a person?
Yeah, or got called in and it wasn't what they expected, and that's where, you know, get those high pressure areas where the dumb ones get called in and shot. The other ones expect a doe in trouble, or even the doe is expecting a fawn in trouble, or is expecting they're expecting something else, but they've been called in so many times by people that their condition goes against biology and what they expect to do. The intent of the call is to replicate something that would get their natural reaction to happen, but that's happened so many times, and it's been the opposite of what they expect, that they no longer come into the calls. And then bucks going at night, and you know, that's pressure. It's, I don't know if those big bucks are smart or if they just have good instincts, or they're not trusting, and that's how they get so big.
Yeah, or they're just lucky. I don't know. Because I was reading, I can't remember where I was reading this, but with antelope on the plains, they used to, like, you know, back in the Wild West days, there was a practice called flagging where people would just like wave a wet thing, and antelope are so curious they would just come right in. And they actually had to make that illegal because it was so deadly. And I guess, like, so I didn't realize that this was illegal, but back when I was hunting antelope a couple years ago, someone told me this. They were like, yeah, if an antelope sees you, like, sometimes if you just stand up and wave your hat, they'll come right in. And I was like, okay, buddy, whatever. But I guess that's true. And I guess sometimes, like, if animals, if they don't have a reason to be scared, then they are curious. And that's, I don't know, I think that's cool.
It wasn't exactly that, but I've heard with antelope too that if you just kind of paw the ground, you can kind of work your way closer. And I don't know if it was Jess or Jaden was talking about that, where again, antelope that aren't highly pressured, you know, you're kind of out there and they see you. If you kind of get busted, but you're not, you know, you're not sneaking, you know, you don't look like something that's stalking them.
You're not walking right at them.
Yeah. Paw the ground a little bit, look down, you know, just kind of pretend that you're an antelope. You can get a lot closer than you would ordinarily. But I'd also heard something similar to that with caribou, like flap on the little white thing, because it kind of resembles the hair of a tail when the tail's out. So I mean, that's got to be crazy if you think it's like, dude, I've never seen a caribou like that. Oh wait, it's got a tail like us. This is so weird. I'm going to stick around and see what it is. But yeah,
but like, I mean, I'd probably be curious, you know, if I encountered something I'd never seen before that was so it makes sense, I guess.
So it was cool to get one down, and then because we'd seen those rubs, and there were a couple of those little trees that take the brunt of the rubs that were really scratched up on the stem, which definitely indicates some eye guards, at least in my estimation. Because just if you have a small forky, they're not rubbing with the points of the fork. So what's going to make those gouges in the trunk? That's more than likely going to be an eye guard. And so based on how big these rubs were, and I've seen some smaller deer just get after some stuff doing rubs. So it's not that a huge rub means a huge buck, but just based on the size of some of them and then the gouges, you start thinking that's probably a nice buck. And so I wonder if this thing had been running around, because there was no fat on it at all. But we both kind of thought that there was probably a good shot that there was another buck in the area, and this guy was maybe the smaller one who was curious and thought, hey, is it my turn now? Like, do I have an opportunity, or should I'm going to be cautious because I don't want big guy to come in and fight me for it.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe he heard the call and he was like, I got to get there.
Yeah, I got to get there first. This is my chance.
But so, yeah, there must have been another bigger buck in there.
Yeah. And then we hung that in a tree. Didn't want to drag it out because there's some thick spots and some steep spots on the hike up. So we had plenty of time. So we boned it out, or quartered it, got the ribs out, got what we could from the bloodshot areas, and then went to another. There were 2 more muskegs, so there were a network of 4. The first one didn't have anything except for some tracks, and it was a lot more grassy than muskeggy. The second one is where we got the buck, and there were 2 other ones that looked really good, and so we snuck to the third one. And it was kind of funny because we were like, oh, let's double up, after not seeing anything. But sometimes you just get that, you just feel like you're in good territory. You just feel like, oh, it's going to happen. You, of course, it feels better when you get one, but yeah, it just seemed like great territory. And then we saw some rubs in that one. Didn't stick around quite as long, because then you start doing the math, and it's all right. It's around noonish, early afternoon, and you got to pack a deer out, and then you got to row, and then you got to, little bit of a hike, and then you got to boat ride, and just a lot of stuff. And so you want to err on the side of caution. You don't want to get too close to darkness. So sat for a little bit, called, nothing came in, and then just kind of investigated the rest of that muskeg, and then investigated the other muskeg on our way out. And those other 2 muskegs look good. I think this weekend when we go out, we'll hit those first, kind of work our way in reverse maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I am curious. I think in past years when we've been out, we've seen a lot more does. I mean, I think in my memory we see at least a doe per day, and I don't know, why are we not seeing any does this year?
I don't know. The places that we've gone that have more traffic, I think that could be, it's been overcalled too. I think maybe we were there on a couple of really beautiful still days too, so I think maybe it's so much easier to hear us. Those stormy days are not ideal to be out in, but your noise is covered so much more. So I think maybe because the weather was so good, it was so much easier to hear us going through that salal and some of the brush. So that could have been one reason. But yeah, usually, even then, there's a doe that's like, what's going on here? But
yeah.
high traffic, they maybe have been spooked so many times, conditioned that, all right, I'm going to get out of here. But,
yeah, I mean, obviously there are does that are super spooky, but I think, at least once a year you always run into that doe that's just, nothing is going to push her off of whatever she's feeding on, or like she just kind of makes a circle around you, gives you your berth of safety, and then gets back to whatever she was doing. And I don't know, I think to me that's been the most discouraging thing, is not, when you see does, you're like, okay, there's got to be bucks here, but when you don't see anything, and then to just have that one little buck come in, like, he wasn't even following a doe or...
Yeah, so I wonder, they cover a lot of ground. At this point, too, you're looking at the fact that thing didn't have any fat on it, so they've probably been running for a little while. And the rut does vary based on where you're at. They say the Prince of Wales is a little bit later, and I know that Thanksgiving is the time where a lot of people over there like to go out and get bucks on the Thanksgiving morning, whatnot. And the last buck I got over there a couple of years ago was day after Thanksgiving on a old clear cut, and we'd called, and the thing was just kind of meandering its way across the clear cut, and got him. It was a nice little 2x3, pretty wide. But yeah, like there's not an ounce. It was crazy. It almost looked malnourished. It looked like it had been on a loan for 100 days.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't have made it through the winter. Maybe we helped him out.
Yeah. I'd be surprised too, and I wish I would have brought a game camera. It'd be interesting to put a game camera up there, because it definitely seemed like could be some wolves running around there, which is it's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely wolves up there, because you see the, signs about people trapping.
Yeah. 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 Bears too, so I wonder what impact that has on the fawning, where the fawning area is there. Like, it's easy to tell the fawning area, like on Prince of Wales and Ketchikan area, because you got you see a lot of the does and fawns next to the roads. 'Cause that's great habitat. It's open. You get a lot of good food there, and predators tend to stay away from those areas, so it's high traffic. But then it's pretty dangerous, because there's people who just plow through the fawns. There were a couple that were playing in the spring, or late spring, early summer. In the mornings, you'd be driving into town and you'd see the doe and fawns. You're like, oh man, mama, you gotta make sure you train these things. And then sure enough, I don't know if it was like the same day or 2 different days, but dead fawn. Ah, man, dang it. It's too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wonder, in areas like that obviously have a high population of bears, if the old boars are taking care of some of the fawns, or if the wolves are moving through. So I wonder if they go up higher, or what their migration is compared to some of the other ones. But
yeah, I don't know. I do not know.
I wonder about the genetics too, because that was a pretty young deer. And then was forked out. It looked like it might. Sometimes you see it's a big deer, pretty thick, broad, looks kind of old, but has small antlers. This thing was a pretty young looking small deer, and then had small fork antlers. So you kind of wonder. I'm not really good at aging animals.
Yeah, we should have looked at the teeth but I wouldn't be able to tell a 1.5-year-old from a 2.5-year-old by the teeth. So.
No. But, yeah, so excited to go back. That'll be cool. And if it snows on Saturday, that could be a cool experience. I think definitely take the bow, and then try to call something in. I think based on, we've learned a lot from that experience there about the recording and the tolerance maybe, and just kind of, again, working on the 4th tag rather than the 3rd, and that level of desperation is down, and we still have this weekend plus Thanksgiving weekend, or those 5 days. So
yeah. Then
the season ends. Prince of Wales goes until the end of December, but over here it's until the end of this month.
But we could shoot over to southern Prince of Wales and go fill that 4th tag if we don't get it.
I think so. Maybe. Yeah. Probably. The southern part, I think. The other parts that have the federal regulations, I don't think you can get your 3rd and 4th over there. I think they have to be your first 2.
Yeah.
But
not that we're gonna do that.
No, absolutely not. We're actually trying to sell the boat.
Yeah.
So if anybody's looking for a 21-foot North River with a ragtop motor, 100. It's a 150 with 400.
About 400 hours.
About 400 hours.
Yeah. Sad.
Yeah. Sad, but it'll be nice to be in a better position at some point to buy a house, build something.
Yeah,
Get
for
you
sure.
a vehicle too.
For sure.
So.
Can't have it all, I guess.
No. But what we can have is venison for dinner tonight. I think we should include recipes whenever possible, so I can brag about how good married life is when you have a great cook, chef.
Yeah.
So you went with kind of a Thai sort of approach to the backstrap.
Yeah, it's kind of a Asian fusion stir fry thing. Yeah, you're supposed to use Thai basil, which we don't have up here, so we use regular basil, but, just your typical kind of stir fry up some meat and veggies and soy sauce, garlic, ginger, basil, that like chili garlic oil you can buy.
It was good. It was spicy, not too spicy, but it's good. I get caught up in a lot of the kind of simple, not a whole lot of ingredient type stuff. I love steak and sweet potatoes with some salad like that. It's just so easy, so good, and pretty simple. So it's nice to have more of those complex tastes in doing the stir fry.
Yeah, I think stir fry's, relatively easy. It doesn't take long. It's a lot of chopping, I guess, but...
Yeah. I think that prep thing is the thing that kind of kept me away from some of that stuff. It's making sure I had all that stuff first, and then B, the amount of chopping and stuff that goes into it. Kind of sounding pretty lazy right now, but...
Yeah. So, yeah, we got leftovers of that. That'd be good.
Yeah. But, what else you got?
Not too much.
All right. Well, call that this episode. I don't know what number we're on. Make sure you check out themediocrelesson.com. You can buy my book, A Miserable Paradise, at Amazon. You can buy it in Juneau at Rainy Retreat Books. You can buy it in Ketchikan at Parnassus or at the airport. Appreciate the support. If you want an autographed copy, you can get one at Parnassus. You can also order one from amiserableparadise.com. I got notes from previous years of hunting rut and hunting blacktails, so you can check some of that stuff out, and I'll be updating this last story. So try to keep that as up to date and with valuable content in there about traveling to Alaska, hunting, fishing, life in Southeast Alaska, all that stuff, and hopefully we'll put together some nice amateur videos of hunting, so we can at least laugh at it. But yeah, we'll get better. It's just, it wasn't that I didn't appreciate how good the cameramen are, like John Abernathy, great guy. I don't know what episode that was I had him on. He's the Elk 101 filmer with Corey and Donnie. And great dude, got some unbelievable shots. So I knew that they were very, very talented. I knew that it wasn't as easy as it looks. Jesse Knock has some awesome films too. So you know that it's not that easy, but just when you try to do it yourself, you really see and appreciate and understand how much more difficult it is. Because anybody can get B-roll. Like we've done that where you just get, this is me in the tent, this is us hiking, this is...
Yeah, well, and it's comical because this is literally my first time using this camera, and I can't figure out how to focus it, which is a rookie mistake, of course. But I'm doing the, like, if you have, like, a Canon or Nikon, like, DLSR, and you kind of push that button down halfway, it will focus on that dot in the center, but turns out that's not the way the video on the Sony A6000 or whatever works. So in the video, you can just hear, like, the half click, click, click.
Yeah.
And it's not focusing. So...
Yeah, we did not do a good dry run on that
I think it will be exponentially better next time.
Yeah. Maybe we should listen to the How to Film a Hunt episode I did with John Abernathy. It's episode 232 was that one. But
yeah. Also, I think a tripod would do wonders, but no one is trying to carry a tripod, so...
Tripod or a monopod or one of those. But yeah, something to... Another point of contact would be good, but... Yeah, it's fun to figure it out. We'll make it work.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and it's leftover time.